Welcome to Exhibitor Lounge, sponsored by ExhibitEdge.com. Now, I'm your host and your trade show mixologist, Michael Gray. Here each week, you receive simple, practical, and proven tips to improve your trade show marketing strategy, maximize your budget, and get better results. All right, well, last week we touched on the straight bill of lading. Well, this week I want to follow up with a lot of the common mistakes. Now, one thing I do want to say is if you send your ambassadors or your exhibitors out and you're the person who makes the transportation arrangements, get a blank bill of lading from a show floor. Like this one's, Exhibit Edge has their own, and then put it on a copier so it's single sheets. You don't need all 3 sheets, and then fill it out for the people going to the show. That way, when they get their packet with their shipping labels and their bill of lading that you send with the shipment or however you give it to them, because they have to fill out the general contractor's bill of lading on show site, they at least have a template to work with as to how it should be filled out. And that's just trying to eliminate common mistakes. Well, let's go through a few common mistakes that happen on a show floor in regards to filling out a bill of lading and preparing a shipment to go off the floor. Well, the first one is not listing a carrier, okay? If you don't list a carrier in the slot where it says carrier name on a bill of lading, the general contractor will get your freight. It will become forced freight. Why? Because a straight bill of lading is the authority that a general contractor has to give it to your specified carrier. Without that, it's the general contractor's responsibility, and he will provide his own transportation. All right, number 2, not filling out a bill of lading. Now, the general contractor cannot move your freight with your carrier specified or anything without a bill of lading. So it is very important that you understand the purpose of a straight bill of lading and what it does, giving the authority to the general contractor to put that freight on your specified carrier. All right, number 3, leaving the freight in the booth with just FedEx labels or other labels on the freight. Again, not filling out a bill of lading like in number 2, but this is just putting FedEx labels, which you say, well, that's a bill of lading. It's not the authority to the general contractor, which is the straight bill of lading. So if you leave freight in a booth and you say, I had FedEx labels on it and this and that, the general contractor is going to say, I'm sorry, you didn't follow procedure, and your freight will be forced onto the general contractor's official freight forwarders on the show site. All right, number 4, listed items are not detailed enough on the bill of lading. When it talks about item descriptions, I mean, everybody's freight looks the same. And so if your neighbor has cartons in the booth and you have cartons in the booth and they're just separated by a little divider and all of a sudden those dividers are gone, when the person comes around to count 8 boxes that need to go on your shipment, he could pick up yours, he could pick up theirs. You need to be detailed about what you put on the bill of lading. And this also applies to air freight shipments, okay? If you have a skid and you send it air freight and you just say 1 skid or 1 pallet, and you don't specify the number of pieces in that skid, and then the air freight company has to break down the pallet to fit it on the airplane, all of a sudden nobody knows how many pieces are on that skid. So you should always do 1 skid of 9 cartons, things of that nature. But specify brown cartons, white cartons, red carpet bags, green carpet bags. Get some detail in your shipments, okay? Number 5, no emergency phone number. Well, let's say you leave the show floor, but you're going back to the hotel, your flight's tomorrow, or can they call the office? The general contractor may try and help out saying, hey, your carrier didn't show up. Without that emergency phone number or contact number, you are at the mercy of the general contractor's usually higher priced freight forwarders on the floor, and an emergency phone number could have helped. All right, number 6, not calling your carrier or checking on your carrier. especially for FedEx shipments. You have to call them and tell them you've got a shipment on the floor in such and such a booth number and the name of the show for them to come by and pick up your freight. Check on your carrier. You made those arrangements with that shipper or that carrier 2 weeks ago, maybe or more. And now it's the day of the pickup. It can't hurt the day before or the day of. It's to call your carrier and remind them of the pickup. All right, now let's get into number 7, which is forced freight. The general contractor has to clear the haul. It's his responsibility to the association so that the association doesn't get charged more rent for the haul than they've allotted. So the general contractor needs to get this freight off the floor. If the general contractor cannot give the freight to your carrier without this bill of lading, so then you get into a forced freight issue. So it's very important. Do the bill of lading, check with your carrier. So number 7, the forced freight issue, kind of combines all the others all in one. The last one that really happens a lot is people don't specify that they have separate shipments in their booth space. So the general contractor's checker comes around with a bill of lading. He goes, oh, they got this, they got this, they got this. Okay, we got all these shipment items in the proper number, but then there's 4 more. So he just adds them to the bill of lading, and he sends the shipment to the wrong location because he doesn't have the other bill of lading in his hands showing the second shipment. In the box at the very top of most straight bill of ladings, you will see a box that says number of shipments in the booth. Very important to say if there's only 1 shipment in the booth or 2 shipments in the booth is to check or circle that box that says how many separate shipments you have going out in your booth space. Now, again, I want to remind you about the National Motor Freight Class, NMFC, Class 125 is usually what the shipping class is for exhibit freight, and I still don't understand why. But if you have different things coming off the floor, that could be Class 92 or Class 65 or Class 50, that's a good way to keep your prices down. And it's also a good way to fight forced freight charges by going to the carrier who sent you a bill and say, what class did you classify my freight as? What class did you classify that pallet as? And if he says Class 125 and it's a pallet, a nice even pallet that's stacked correctly and just has durable items on it, or small computer equipment or something, you should be able to get a cheaper class. Just something to read or something to check out later on. Hey, as always, please respond with your questions or comments and let others know about exhibitorlounge.com. But we'll see you next week. Till then, I'm your host, Michael Gray, telling you, hey, relax in the Exhibitor Lounge.